Okay, in this particular video, I'm going to teach you how to use charcoal, okay? This particular charcoal is student grade. They sell them in different forms. They sell them in, this particular one is by Prang, and it's kind of like a wax marker. I don't know if you've ever used one of those, but you pull along here, and this is how you sharpen it, right? And you unroll. The string stays there, but you go one notch at a time. There are little notches all the way down the side of this. You could literally see the paper. It's basically paper that's been scored, and it's been rolled and compressed. And this is a string that stays under the very first layer. So as you pull to the next notch, you can release and it goes about a 1/4 inch depth each release, okay? So charcoal is much different than pencil, okay? The techniques are the same, but yet pencil, you press and you get that kind of line. You press the pencil the charcoal the same way, the same exact pressure, and you get a darker line. With charcoal, I recommend when you work with your tip projected a bit, or work with a very sharpened form of your charcoal. Like I said, they make also charcoal like pencil form, but yet instead of graphite, it's charcoal, okay? Now it's really chalky. It makes a mess, okay? Now I thought I would do a small, rendition of a shape just to kind of show you how to kind of create. And I'm doing this very softly. I'm barely touching the paper and I'm getting a mark. As you remember, we talked about different techniques. You can, do the blending technique where you work with the side and then you slowly go from light to dark. You could work with that method, or you could work with the hatching, or you could work with cross hatching. Now here I've stumbled upon a bunch of different grades here of shade, and that's using just the side of the charcoal, and I'm pressing from this very light to dark, okay? And then remember the hatching. Lines in one direction, and the closer you get with the lines, the darker, farther apart, the lighter. And I already told you the way I work with hatching. And as you see, I'm coming a little closer to my pencil, to my lead, the nib. I call that the nib. And reason, because I want to gain more control. Less control, I'll pull back a bit, and I'll go ahead and take my hand and move it backwards so I can get less control and a softer touch. So in this area here, I'm coming down a little softer. So I've gone from this dark to this light with the hatching technique. Now, cross hatching, the same thing. Here I'll go ahead and, like I said before, I like to show contrast in between. And the way I show contrast is by going with the opposite value. Here I'm going in with dark, and then I'm slowly fading to a light. And now as you see, I'm starting to release the pressure upon my pencil by putting my hand, pulling back a bit, so that way when I press down, I'm not putting that much pressure. If I want more control, I'll hold my pencil different, or my drawing implement different. That goes for any, drawing implement that you might use, whether it be pencil, color pencil. Just know that the closer you hold it, the more control, less control further back, okay? Now, here we've done the cross hatching, here we've done the hatching, and here we've done the blending. I would not recommend with this medium that you do stippling, because of the fact that it's a chalky based media, and you're not going to get a really good dot by you have to work with the dot with this point many times. And unfortunately, another thing too is that it gets quite messy, so as you pass over it, you might smudge it, okay? So I would not recommend at all stippling, okay? So these are the techniques that you work with any drawing medium, okay? So now here, I'm gonna go ahead and use the technique of blending, but unfortunately, as you see, as I pass over it, it starts to look like hatching. It's just customary that that should happen because it is a pointed, lead. I'm releasing my pressure upon it, and I'm trying to gain less control, but yet I want to slowly fade from one to the other shade. Here I'm going to pass by with a little bit less pressure. Here more pressure. So I'll layer, layer, layer until I'm satisfied with what I want, with what I'm drawing. Here I want a darker value. So I keep layering until I get, or they also call it veiling, when you pass over it several times to get a darker value. So again, that chiaroscuro that we talked about before, how we're trying to make the form turn. Things that go back in space get dark. Things that come out to you get light. Now, another thing too that you might want to know when you're working with this kind of chalky medium, you may want to put a paper underneath your hand so that way when you work, you don't mess up the rest of the paper. Now, here I'm trying to smooth it out more. Now, another thing, there is something called a tortillon, but I don't use a tortillon until very much the end, and I'll show you what that tortillon does. Like I said, I'm coming in with, I went from light to dark, reason because I want my lighting to come from this side. So again, like I said, you could either do this the baby beginner way and just do light to dark and forget about lighting. Or you could think about the lighting, think about where the light's coming in from, and work and orchestrate, whatever it is that you're drawing, so that way it gives that illusion, okay, that chiaroscuro that we talked about. Here, the lighting's coming from this direction. This area is light. This area here is a shadowed area, and this is the deepest, darkest value, which is the cast shadow. Okay, now I want to show off a little bit of this top, but I want to come in with a very soft and faint value in the background. I want to get rid of the line, the table line. I want it to be more about the shade rather than the line. Remember, I told you that contrast is more important than a line. If I show contrast between these two areas, I don't need that line, okay? So I work with it, and as you see, I'm trying to develop less control, so I'm pulling back on you could say my grip. Okay, my grip is further away, and this is the light area. This should be the darker area, so I'm going to come in a little bit darker in this area. So as you see, I'm tightening up on my control here, and like I said, that's going to be the light area. This area is going to be dark. So I'm going to hit it up a little bit darker. And the way I work, the way I tell my students to work too, is that I want you to work with the charcoal. I want you to demonstrate to me what you can do with the charcoal, not your finger. We don't use the finger in art. There's no smudging, okay? So those who smudge, I will point it out. When I see your work, I say, hey, no smudging. And it's pretty easy to tell because it looks pretty oily. We don't want the oils of your fingers or the oils from your hands going onto the paper. All right, we want it clean. Now, what an artist uses when they use charcoal is they use something called a tortillon. This is a tortillon, okay? What is a tortillon? It is a wrapped piece of paper. And it's actually, if you see, look very carefully along here, you'll see the point where they use the glue. That's like a little bit of this adhesive. And as they wrap, the ending portion has adhesive. You can sharpen these in a pencil sharpener to make it clean. Or another thing I do is I use my kneadable eraser. The kneadable eraser, just like it sounds, it is kneadable, okay? And this is a very important tool when you're working with charcoal. What can you do? You can lift up the material from the from the surface. And if you lift up, it makes it a little bit it makes it a little bit cleaner. Okay. Another thing, let me show you how this works. After you're completely done, then what do? Then I'll allow you to go ahead and use the tortillon to kind of smooth it out. Okay. But I would not use it as a crutch. Some students use it as a crutch, meaning that they put down the pigment and then they let the tortillon do the work and smudge. No, it doesn't work that way, okay? I want you to use the tortillon just to kind of smooth out your drawing if you need to, okay? Not keep it, don't keep it as a crutch and just to get those light values, okay? Now, in here, I want a little bit of a definition between the edge and the background. So I'm using some of the pigment that I have on the tortillon to kind of make that shade. And this I'm smoothing out softly. I'm not putting a lot of pressure. Don't put a lot of pressure on your paper. Paper has a tooth, believe it or not. The more pressure you put to it, the more damaged it gets. When you work as an artist, you really learn about your surface and you learn not to damage your surface, okay? So right there, that's, and if there's any, problems that you might have had or any imperfections, you could go ahead and erase whatever it is that you don't want. If you want a little highlight, you want to capture that little highlight a little bit more, you can, that reflective light if you wanted to. And that's what you do, okay? So hopefully this video helps you for those who want to use charcoal, okay? And like I said, I'm going to be making short videos for each and every media to help you guys along, all right? Even though I've done the demonstrations before, I remember doing this demonstration when we were working on the portrait, okay? So if you actually look back on the portraiture and media, you'll find the video in regards to charcoal. But I went ahead and made another one. All right, thank you. Bye.